Welcome to Southwest Florida Real Estate Update, hosted by local realtors Jim, Michael, and Morgan York of the York Real Estate Group of Downing Fry Realty. Our show will bring you the most up-to-date information on the local real estate market, featuring the leading experts in the real estate field.
Hi, and welcome to the Southwest Florida Real Estate Update. I'm Michael York of the York Real Estate Group, and today we're joined by our host, Jim York, and his guest, Don Ross Jr., President of Ross Title and Escrow.
Thank you, Michael, for the introduction. Well,
Hey,
Mr.
Jim.
Ross, how are you today?
Pretty good, Mr. York. Yourself?
I'm good. So thanks for coming on the show again for our
thanks for having
monthly update here. For the viewers that have not seen our show, could you just tell them a little bit about yourself, please?
I'm an attorney in Naples. I've been a member of the bar since 1981. I have a degree in taxation. I own Ross Title and Escrow. I have my own law firm. I'm a shareholder in Downing Fry Realty. Been their attorney for 25 or so years. Our office for the title company is on the corner of 6th Avenue North and 41. I have 7 ladies who work for me. We're really a family business. 4 of them are related.
That's right.
Janet's been with me 30 years, her daughter 20 years, her sister 10 years. She's got a niece who's 3 or 4 years. She's only 22. So it's truly a family business. We do quite a few closings. Both between the closings and being the attorney for Downing Fry, we've seen a lot of different situations that allows us to help people more effectively.
Yeah, I know you handle most of our closings, and everyone comes back to us and says, boy, that was just a smooth transition. And the nice thing about it is that your closers communicate with us, too. They'll answer an email quickly or a phone call. So
Pet peeve of mine,
yeah,
just calling people back.
That's what's nice. It's not the next day.
Yeah.
So we're here today to talk a little bit about closings. So how do we start with having a smooth closing?
It really starts beforehand. I mean, we're in a unique part of the country where people buy from all over the world, all over the country. They're used to different contracts. They're used to different environments, different weather patterns, different maintenance issues, different cultures. So you evaluate your owner, you evaluate your buyer in the beginning. If you're getting a listing, I strongly recommend that you give them a copy of the sales contract. Anticipating that when they get their first offer,
That's right.
if you don't show it to them now,
Right.
it'll be the first time that they see this document, 10, 11 pages, as well as having to make a relatively hasty decision on whether or not they're going to accept the price, the deposit, the contingencies, financing contingencies. So anything a listing agent can do to minimize their owner's anxiety level, expose them as little new stuff as at one time, will make it go easier. If the only thing they have to question is, gee, is that a good enough price that they're offering? Is that deposit big enough?
Right.
Is that financing contingency realistic? It just makes it easier for them to decide. Plus it gives them time to just read it, and you can outline the costs, the inspection process, what is considered defective under this contract, what's not, and allow them just to peruse it, at home at night with their spouse and get back to you the next day. So it just lowers the number of questions they're going to hit you with when an offer is made.
I just did this, not to interrupt you, but we just did a listing, okay, my son, daughter, and I, and,
Right.
We met him through one of our seminars, really.
Right. Oh,
so
good.
he emailed me the next day and asked, could I get a copy of the sales contract?
Yes.
Because that's what we talked about
Oh, right,
mostly
right,
at the thing. So I sent him a copy, and a couple days later he says, I'd like to list my home with you. Would you be interested? So we went out there, and he already read the real estate contract, so we had a lot of questions about that.
Yes.
And then we went over the listing contract, but I told him, we're not going to sign this today. We'll sign it when the photographer comes out to take the pictures, so he has some time to read it over. At the end of our conversation, I don't want to take up too much time in our
You can
show
talk the whole
here.
show, Jim.
So at the end of the conversation, he says, I'm a retired attorney from Illinois.
You poor man.
Well, it was nice because he read it and he had a lot of questions, and he said you answered all my questions. He said you didn't skip over anything. You didn't say you didn't know anything. So he was very happy, and goes in MLS tomorrow. So it was nice to hear that. The process that what you just indicated.
Yeah. The alternative is getting an offer, say, noon Friday, and the buyer gives you till noon Saturday to accept it.
You're exactly.
So you're getting hit with all those issues, as well as, is that a fair price? And is that, they're only putting $1,000 down, and is that mortgage realistic? And so you want to get as much of it out of the way as humanly possible before the offer comes in.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I'll give you another story. I'm going to take up the whole show today.
I can go home. That's good.
I'm on a roll. I'm on a roll here. I'm on a roll. So Morgan, my daughter, has a listing, and this week,
Yes.
we had 2 offers. Okay, so we had to sit down with them and go over both offers.
Right.
And we went back to one, but one offer, which was, I don't know why he did this, okay, but he had, I think it was 7 addendums to the contract for every little thing, and so they can cancel for every little thing. And he had 22 days for fill in the blank for default. So one of the things we did was we said, why didn't you just do an as-is contract? Because you could put 22 days in there and cancel, do all your inspections that you want to do, and cancel in 22 days. And he says, well, we could do an as-is contract, but I've never had a contract come to us, with 7 or 8 or 6 addendums for every little thing.
I get a lot of that, actually.
You do?
It's usually from some attorney in Brewster, New York. That's where my cousin's from. I actually had one from Brewster, New York, where it was an 18-page addendum to our 10-page contract. And, lawyers, and I'm a lawyer, so I can pick on lawyers, they don't tend to visualize, or many of them don't, what it's going to appear like to the seller. If you have too many contingencies, I mean, yes, you want to protect your buyer, but is there another way to cover all those contingencies and make it look simple? And there's also a certain psychological value to using a form. It's a little less threatening.
Right.
And this is a form. It's not something that Don Ross wrote.
Right.
So they don't have to run to their attorney necessarily to review the form. Everybody uses it in Collier County. So the psychology is important. And like you said, if you use an as-is contract, that covers everything.
It covered everything.
And it looks simple.
It looks simple.
It's clean. It's less threatening to the seller. So, give it to them early. And I also recommend, I don't think they're going over the listing agreements quite so well, because I get a lot of owners who get irritated because somebody might not be having an open house. Or I had one last week where they're irritated that the listing agent was getting a commission and they didn't get the buyer. The buyer just walked in, didn't think the listing agent deserved it. I mean, I'm not kidding.
Oh my gosh.
We had one yesterday where they were complaining about Downing Fry has a fee of $275. It's an additional commission fee. And it's right in the listing agreement. And the seller's saying, well, we're not paying that. And so we got a copy of the listing agreement where it was already in there.
Right.
And the seller and his wife signed it. He said, oh, okay, I guess we have to sign it. So impressing upon the owner that this listing agreement gives you the discretion on how you're going to market the property. Jim York has his own way of marketing that works well. It suits your personality. It suits your construction background and your expertise. What works for you might not work for somebody else. So it's your call how it's marketed, as long as you're making your best effort. And it also lists the owner responsibilities. Getting the property ready before a showing. Make sure it's safe, because people trip. Making sure that things are in a safe place so that things don't take a walk. I've had, as the attorney for the company, a number of people who would allege, my watch went missing. This one was a lawyer too.
Right.
And then, oh, really? You left your watch on your bedside dresser for the last 3 months? Yeah, but, you get a lot of that. So this is a contract. The owner doesn't have the right to terminate it just because they aren't happy that they didn't get an offer in 3 days.
That's right.
So, go over that beforehand, and hopefully when the owner gets an offer, there'll be less stress.
Well, Don, we're going to dissect those contracts a little bit more here.
Sure.
But we're going to take a little short break, and we're going to have a little commercial break about the York Real Estate Group and why you should purchase or list your home with the York Real Estate Group. Thank you.
Thinking of buying or selling a home in Naples, Marco Island, Bonita, or Estero, Florida? Think of the most experienced York Real Estate Group, associated with the #1 brokerage in Southwest Florida, Downing Fry Realty, which produces yearly real estate transactions of over $1 billion. Jim, Michael, and Morgan make up the York Real Estate Group of Downing Fry Realty, with over $275 million in sales transactions, along with offering over 25 combined years' experience in the local market. The Yorks can offer the experience and trust you need in a realtor. Call them today at 239-273-6727 or visit their website at www.naplesyorkrealestate.com.
Welcome back. Don, well, let's take it a little step further. How do we prepare a buyer?
Well, first we make sure the producer is recording this show.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just like he was teasing us a few moments ago. With a buyer, I recommend giving them a sample mold report, a sample inspection report, just so they can see what it looks like. Again, you and I do this all the time.
Right.
I have no clue how many contracts I've looked at. It's just thousands and thousands and thousands. Most people don't. Or they might see one from Maryland, or they might see one from Connecticut or New York, wherever they're from. So give them a sample inspection report. Give them a sample mold report. Most places don't test for mold. The Florida Bar and the Florida Association of Realtors, their contract does not test for mold. So they're not used to it. It's a scary looking report. If you give it to them, it gives them the same opportunity to ask questions about it, and what's this type of mold and what's that kind of mold, and why is it an issue, and it gives us an opportunity to deal with it so it's non-threatening when the test finally comes in. You've already forewarned them on what they might see. As to the contract itself, I zoom really into 3-4 areas. One, I go over what's defective and not defective.
That's right.
So when you get the inspection report, they know what they're entitled to. If the air conditioner's old, and I use this so many times, but if it's old and the differential's off a little bit, they're not entitled to a brand new air conditioner. Doesn't mean Jim York's not going to try to get them a brand new air conditioner.
Right.
It just keeps their expectations where it should be. This is what you're legally entitled to. Let's ask for more. Whatever you get, you can apply to a brand new air conditioner.
So it's market value of replacement costs,
yes,
right?
Yes, it's a fair market value if it were working perfectly. And I tell all my buyers with that situation that even if it was working perfectly, I'd be the first one, and I am the first one, to tell them that you should put this in your budget. This should be one of the first things you get.
That's right.
And you do not want the air conditioner to go in August and then have your family come down at Thanksgiving and have mold crawling all over the place. So, I had it this morning actually. Went over this with two people who are selling to each other without a realtor.
Right.
I want them to be prepared. But within the contract, I go over the personal property, because we have 13 lines of it. I want to make sure that the seller really means to sell their stereo or their home security system, whatever it might be. They want to know the inspection process. I go over that in detail, and we hit exactly what we just talked about. I go over the time periods. You have 15 days to do your inspection, 5 days to make your request, and the seller has 10 days to respond. And if the seller says no, the buyer has 5 days to cancel. So it keeps everybody reasonable. Then they want to know about the financing contingency. Now, probably 2/3 of my transactions are cash, but I go over, it's paragraph 4. They have the default language, I think it's 30 or 45 days. 45 days to waive the financing contingency if they want to avoid having the seller terminate the contract. And I said it's somewhat of a mind game. Will the seller terminate? Does the seller have other offers for more money?
Right.
has the inspection process been a nightmare and the seller's just tired of the buyer and they want to get rid of them? Does the buyer, I mean, depending upon the buyer, I had a lady with, I think she was a single mom with 4 children, and it was a relatively small deposit, and she didn't qualify for the loan, but it wasn't really a valid reason to invoke the contingency. So the seller in that case, sympathy for her situation, trying to be a decent human being, plus the cost to litigate the deposit would exceed the $5,000 at risk. And in all probability, this lady didn't have extra money in the bank to pay attorney's fees, even if the seller won. So, I go over that with both sides. That's why we have a deposit of approximately 10%. What is the point of it? Mutual consideration. I go over who pays for what. Again, I did that this morning. The documentary stamp tax are the seller's responsibility, $7 per thousand. The buyer pays for title insurance, roughly $5.75 per thousand, with small settlement fees. And they're good with that. The tangible property, if there is tangible property, I cover as well. So I really hit 4 major things. That seems to be the limit before people can't remember anything I told them. The tangible property is an issue really if you have a mortgage. Bank doesn't want to see that they're financing furniture. They don't want to know about it. So we have a separate agreement for the furniture. Aside from that, even if it's cash, I want it to be clear what's being conveyed. There technically is a difference between furniture and furnishings. Furniture is the chairs and the tables and things like that. Furnishings can include paintings and knickknacks and drapes and things like that. So try to be as precise as possible. I realize nobody's going to sit around and count forks and pans and so forth, but my rule of thumb generally is which list is shorter? The list of stuff you're conveying or the list of stuff the seller is keeping? If the list is shorter for what you're keeping, just put in the contract, seller's conveying all the tangible property turnkey furnished as of the effective date, minus the 6 things you're not conveying. If the list of things you're conveying is short, well then just list the 6 things. We're conveying just these 6 things. Clarity, so you and I both know, if I was buying from you, what I'm buying.
Yeah, and that's what we did just with Morgan's deal this week. Okay, they had half a dozen pictures and a jukebox. So the house is furnished, so they wanted the furniture, which we're selling to them at no value, because they were getting a mortgage, a bill of sale. But we took out the pictures and did a list, or pictures of the pictures, so they excluded them.
Pictures of the pictures?
Okay. So, so that it was a shorter list, obviously, because we couldn't be making an inventory of everything that went. It's all on pictures on the MLS, what is included.
Well, you just don't want folks doing their walkthrough and being upset because something they had their heart set on is gone, and it's on a truck on its way to Minnesota, which happens.
Oh, it does.
I mean, they can't get it back if they wanted to. So anything to avoid a miscommunication is generally a good thing.
Before we go on to the next thing here, okay, let's take a little short break and hear a little bit about Ross Title and Don Ross himself and all the closings he does in the Naples area. We'll be right back.
Looking for a real estate closing agent in Southwest Florida? Ross Title and Escrow has over 25 years experience and has closed over 20,000 residential real estate transactions. Donald Ross Jr., president of Ross Title and Escrow and a practicing attorney in the state of Florida with a degree in taxation, is here to service your needs. Call Mr. Ross or one of our 4 closing agents for a free consultation today.
Welcome back. Well, Don, I know you got a few more items here to go over, so let's start with, how about condo docs?
Well, I did this morning. I actually had 2 calls with a gentleman over the year-end financial statement. I review condo docs for free. It's how I built my business, that and reviewing contracts and being available to agents. My client this morning, he's a retired engineer with an MBA in financing. So he's type A like I am, or a doctor, or a CFO. So, you know, again, the strategy of having a smooth closing is nobody wants a surprise. People want to understand what they're getting. And if they're from another state and this gentleman's retiring down here, he wants to understand the year-end financial statement. So I looked at it, and I could tell in December they had a big reserve fund for the roof, and the end of January they had a negative number.
Right.
They just got a new roof.
Yeah.
We had Hurricane Irma. They had some receivables that they were owed, so I suggested he contact the management company and find out what's going on in the receivables. There's 60 units in this particular condominium. I said, what's the norm for this condo? And you get people who, you know, they've lost their job. I mean, the price point's under $200,000 per unit.
So it
you
could
have
be, right.
regular, normal human beings who work for a living who live there. And, you know, what is the norm historically for receivables? You know, it's just after Christmas. Maybe they just bought presents for their children. Maybe, you know, somebody lost a job. How many units are delinquent? You're trying to gauge the financial health of the association, is the way I look at it. It's an artificial person. And the third thing, they had a few questionable categories that I just had never seen before. Probable bad debt. I said, what's that? How did they come up with it? And so he was going to call the association and the management company and see if, in fact, the expenditure of money was for their deductible on their roof, because the association is supposed to have insurance for the roof.
That's right.
And double check on what these questionable categories were. And then I shared a few experiences with Hurricane Wilma, so you wouldn't get too excited. So the other point I try to do to keep people calm, and that's really the name of the game, keeping people calm,
It is.
I explained to this gentleman that if you have your inspection, when you have your inspection, if there's an issue, if there's a problem, you're getting a mortgage, it's under $200,000, you can't have an escrow for repairs of termites or a leaky roof or,
No, you can't.
or anything like that. The bank doesn't want to see it.
Because it affects the value of what they're loaning against.
Well,
so.
the way lenders are, they almost always, they want to make believe that the collateral's perfect.
Right.
That's the security for their loan. They want to make sure it's fine. They don't want to know there's anything broken or
Right.
that there was a permit issue or anything like that. They don't want to hear it. So, frequently the loan officer will recommend that you have a credit for closing costs, prepaids, and escrows, which we do frequently. I always recommend that you check with your lender, make sure that that is okay with them. 99.9% of them it is okay with. There's the one odd duck who doesn't like it. And again, try to have an in-state lender. They know the area, they know the market, they are accessible by telephone, they care about what I think, what you think. You and I both can send a good lender a lot of work. So they're going to put an honest effort into it. They won't blow us off. So try using in-state. I mean, you get all these folks, and God bless them, but I bank at such and such big bank.
That's right.
Up in New York.
New York, yep. We
Well,
get that.
that person you bank with, I'll just arbitrarily Bank of America say.
Right.
You're not going to get the same person down in Naples processing your loan.
No.
It's not even connected, really. It's one big mega international bank. And I'm not picking on Bank of America,
you're
I'm
not.
just using them as an example. So just because your checking account is with Bank of America in New York, it's not going to get you any leverage whatsoever down here in Naples. It's not going to mean anything. So get a local person who has to account to you. And in fact, you mentioned a situation where you know someone who's using a friend who's in the mortgage business, and the jury's out on how competent they are.
Right.
I mean, I've been through that with my own children buying. Dad, I want to use a friend. Well, I mean, I know they're nice, but do they know what they're doing? Are they experienced? Will the loan close?
That's the key.
Bottom line,
I mean,
will it
the
close?
people we use we've been using for 10 to 20
Yeah.
years since we've been down here. So it's, they have experience, and we, recommend them, and we know that when they do the loan, that either they're going to be able to get the loan or not be able to get the loan, and what they're going to need to get the loan
Yeah.
too. So it's,
I mean, in a
it's a
perfect-
process.
Oh, a perfect world, you want a nice person and you want a competent person
Right.
both.
Yep.
But that doesn't always happen.
No, it doesn't.
So, sometimes I have to deal with somebody who's not quite so nice, but they're really good at what they do.
Right.
As long as they know that they're not so nice, I can handle it. I know they're going to do a good job for my client, and the deal will get done, which is my job.
Yep.
So those are the main points, I guess, in a smooth contract. The common thread through all of it is communication.
That's true, isn't it?
Clear.
Right.
I mean, the contract really, and when I had the two ladies in this morning who didn't have a realtor, I said, the contract is really a means of communicating, and they're two best friends.
That's right.
Because my job as the attorney is to ask all the questions that two friends would never in a million years ask each other, because they trust each other.
Right.
And my point to them is, when I get a situation like that, my number one goal is to make sure they're still friends when it's over. So I will ask all the embarrassing questions that neither one would ask the other.
That's
Because
right.
I want them to still be friends. So this is just a deal. How many friends do you have at this point in life? So it's communication. Every single step, everything we talked about, communication.
Well, Don, thanks for coming on the show. And
Thank you.
I think our viewers have learned a lot. I know I like doing this with you because it makes
poor
our
man.
job easier. So again, thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.